Hi, it's 1010 the Navigator, and today I'm just going to talk about Noah and his ark. And this is just a different perspective on what could have possibly taken place. I'm in no means saying that this is truth, and I just want to offer a different perspective on what happened. Um, and why, in a lot of instances, we read the Bible, it doesn't make any sense to us. It really doesn't apply to us in essence. And it is possible that a lot of these stories took places on different planets. And that's why it doesn't make sense to us. And it's a history and a remembrance for a particular extraterrestrial species that now dwell here on this planet with us. So, if you don't know the story of Noah's Ark, I'm going to give you a little Bible lesson. You can also look up this information via the Talmud. I think there's some information in there as well as the Torah, obviously, and then the good old Bible. So, Noah was a righteous man. Now, it doesn't mean that he was a good man. But if you follow my channel, you know that a particular species that called the Jupiters, they are genetically beneficial to this particular god that they worship, Yahweh or Jehovah, or the name that cannot be said. So Noah was the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, there was a catastrophic flood that was going to take place. And I implore you to think of it from this perspective, that this particular catastrophic event did not take place here on this planet, and that ark was created to bring animals from the planet that Noah was dwelling on at the time, so that the Jupiters of this planet and possibly other planets, as well as the resources available on these planets, were brought with him to divide maybe amongst these different planets or to one particular planet in general. Okay, so Noah was a righteous man, and we can see, if you're not familiar, he was found naked in his tent once, and one of his sons looked upon his nakedness. He was a drunkard, he had issues. That's why I say righteous is all about the DNA aspect. And we can see that from the story of Lot as well. He was not a good man. He was not a righteous man or a holy man, but his genetics specified that he was worth saving. He was considered innocent. And when it comes to terms with this particular extraterrestrial species, we find that their genetics are very important. Now, the Jupiters have a particular food that they are only supposed to eat and how it's prepared. And you can listen to that video. It's listed in my history here on YouTube. But Noah was to bring the animals and possibly other resources, could be different types of fruit and vegetables, because we had to have a way of feeding these animals. So these particular food groups were brought along with them to ensure the DNA survival and compatibility with their people. So there was a deluge. Now, Noah was instructed to build an ark, and there was a covenant made with Noah and God. And Noah was instructed by God to, take female and male animals and bring them on the ark to have them spared from this cataclysmic destructive flood that was going to take place. Now, this is from Wikipedia, and there is no confirmable physical proof of the ark, being here or ever, being found on this planet, nor was there evidence of a flood, a global flood. Now, there have been talk by the scientific community that, it's possible that a flood took place in one particular region and that area was flooded. But from my understanding of the scriptures and its translation from the Hebrew to the English, it is a global flood that took place that destroyed this particular planet. And if you watched my video about Venus being Sodom, you will know that you can reference back to the fact that Venus, the planet, and the inhabitants of that planet were not hospitable to the Jupiters, did not give over their resources or their power or, their way of life, for the sake of the Jupiters. And when you do that, you cause a lot of strife in these people, and they in turn, God hears them and comes and says, we have a problem here. You're not doing what I want you to do for my people. So I'm going to destroy your planet. Is pretty much what happens. Now, the particular wood that was utilized, and this is very interesting as well, is not located here on this planet. Some say that the wood could possibly have been destroyed and is no longer here, like a species of it became endangered and wiped out. It's also possible that it wasn't made out of wood at all because it was a spaceship. So whatever it was made out of had to transport these resources. And what I mean by resources, I mean water, I mean vegetation, I mean animals, gold, silver, whatever was available on that planet at that time, plants, like it was its own planet, like its own spaceship planet. Okay. And it had to settle somewhere else. Now, the word gopher is not otherwise known in the Bible or in Hebrew. So their best case, scenario is that it was pitched wood. Now, I personally don't think that it was wood. I don't think that they know what it means because it was a spaceship. So if you don't know, then you know. And if you do know, then you do. So this is my take on this story. So you want to know something cool? Of course you do, because I'm going to tell you. And you've been waiting for this part. If you've made it this far, welcome. This is Mars. Mars is the only planet in our solar system that has been flooded 3.7 million or 3.7 billion years ago. I don't know about millions or billions because that's what scientists do because they don't know time frames. But this planet used to be abundant with water. It had life on it at one point too. And there's evidence of that as well. Now it's a desert wasteland. Hence, that's why I think it's possible that water was taken from that planet and placed here, although I have not worked all the logistics out on that, because there was no global flood here. And I know some of you are going to say, well, what about global warming? The ice caps are melting. Aside from all that, we can see that additional water was added to this planet because there are whole civilizations underwater. Now, Mars had devastating floods that formed deep canyons on the red planet. Now this planet's dried up. It's possible that that water was taken and brought here, or taken and put on another planet. Now we know what happened to Venus. Venus was destroyed. Venus is the second planet from the sun, yet it is the hottest and it burns fire and brimstone. You would think that Mercury, since it's the closest, would be the hottest, but it's not, which Doesn't seem logical, right? But it would if it was destroyed by some type of, cataclysmic event that created this ability for it to burn forever and ever, as a reminder to every other planet. This is what happens when you don't open up your planet to us and be hospitable to us. And we can see this, and I'm going to go back to the fact of the Noahide laws. And as far as I can remember, I believe Clinton met with, and I'm going to call them high priests, I'm not going to call them rabbis. These particular Jupiters are on another level. Okay, they're not just regular rabbis. They know all the secrets. I'm sure they know that they're from another planet. And they go to the good old United States of America, and the president signed the Noahide laws. Why do they do that? Think about it. America is the lapdog. Do you understand that? If you follow the directions, if you are hospitable to us, if you permit things to happen to us, and you don't take care of us, the poor, the alien. You remember what happened to Venus? Remember what happened to Saturn? You don't want to be like that. You don't want to lose your planet, right? This is for entertainment purposes, everyone, okay? So on to another point that I'm going to make here. This is a hot topic too when it comes to Russia. And again, these are just the different things that I see, and I'm providing another perspective. There are multiple perspectives out there. I never say that I'm right. I'm just presenting you information, and then it's your job to come up with your own conclusion as to what you think. Or if you're like, well, that's interesting, and then you keep it moving. I know I do. I hear a lot of really interesting things, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I don't know if that's true or not. Could be. Like on my channel, I don't want to have a debate if the earth is round or flat. I don't want to have a debate if there's space or not. I don't want to have a debate if there are other planets in our galaxy or our solar system. I don't want to have that debate. Okay? But it's very possible and highly likely that we have different extraterrestrial species here on our planet that look like us. And I'm going to throw a spin on this too. It could be very well that we, the humans here, different ethnicities and what have you, are possibly all extraterrestrial to this planet. And there are very few actual humans from this planet left. So Russia planned on going to Mars this year. But what happened? I don't have to tell you. You already know that this country is in the midst of war. Now we know Elon Musk is going to Mars, but I'm going to tie this back around to Russia. And I want you to really think about this is way more than just what we see here at the surface level. We could look and say, well, the Ukraine wants Russia's land. Russia wants their Ukraine's land. Whatever, they battle each other. It started in space, okay? And it's here on our planet. Now, the red star, I by no means agree nor disagree. This is just an outside view of communism. Now, I'm going to say it like this, how those from Russia, possibly not all of them, the originals could have been from Mars and are Martian. And communism I know was created somewhat later on, at least from the records that we can see, but it's always been here. Now, it just may have never had a name. How this particular group of people views communism, how we see it as political, is the same way that the Jupiters view Judaism, which is worship-like. So you have different species who view their planet and what happened and have taken their way of life, and it's either in a worshipful way, a political way, a war way, however you want to look at it, and brought it here to this planet. All right. So the star that you see, the red star, is the Mars star, and it goes back to the ancient god of war. Now, the Red Army wore it. It was also a huge symbol. And if you follow my channel, you know that stars are, to me, the symbolizing of the planet that these particular extraterrestrials could possibly come from. Now, it's difficult to say when it comes to the Russians, because you do have other countries that have adopted this communist mentality. But the difference between this particular extraterrestrial species is they are open to other people being a part of this way of thought, this way of life. It's okay. They embrace it that way. You cannot become a Jupiter. All right. They're pretty closed off. They don't really want any mingling. All right. So there's differences there. So here you have the field of Mars in St. Petersburg, Russia. Now, could be just a coincidence, could be, the fact that they really enjoy the god Mars. That's a possibility. But the fact that they wanted to go back to Mars this year, and it was very important to them, and that America wanted to beat them to it. Here you can see, and I'm not going to read this out loud. You can read this. Is about the Russian Empire, and pretty much we've seen throughout history, again, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Egyptian Empire, the Babylonian, the Assyrian, the German Empire, the Russian Empire. I mean, it goes on and on. If you do not allow for certain things or certain people groups to, if you don't sign the Noahide laws, if you don't oblige them, I'm just saying later on, their civilization crumbles, and you could say, well, it's internal. It's just like anything. When you look at a particular species and all of a sudden another species comes in and they're like, what are you doing here? At first, they kind of are just like, well, they're just doing their own thing, right? And then later on, they don't see the effects until it's too late. And they've lost their home, they've lost their food, they've lost their way of life, they've lost their planet. And I'm by no means saying that they don't deserve to have a happy, healthy life. I believe that they should, absolutely. Maybe they don't realize it, but even in the Bible, it talks about they are going to get a new heaven and a new earth. They get planets, the whole thing. And we've been programmed to think that this is okay. This is not okay. This is just an article, and you can look it up, and it shows, the different types of riots that were taking place in Russia, during this time of the fall of the Russian Empire, which later on became the USSR. And you're now looking at Russia. So here you have the flag of the USSR, and you can see the red star, which is the star of Mars. Now, it is a communist ideology. And again, I'm by no means agreeing with it or disagreeing with it, just like I don't agree or disagree with the Jupiters. The only thing I disagree with is anybody coming to our planet and trying to take it over and destroying everyone else in the process. And here's where I'm going to leave this and tie it all together. This book, called The Red Star, was written in 1908 during the Bolshevik Revolution. Now, this happened with the Russian Empire, and then it turned into the USSR. So during that time, the Bolshevik Revolution, okay? And that's a whole huge story. Like, that's a whole huge history. And if you haven't read about it, it's very interesting. I suggest, if you have time, you want to go back and read about it. It's very interesting what happened to this particular group of people. But here's how I'm going to tie it all together. The book, this novel, The Red Star, by the Bolshevik revolutionary Alexander Bogdanov, describes a technologically advanced communist civilization on Mars. This is 1908. And you're going to say to me, 10, but we have telescopes and all these other things, but why Mars? Because it's innately in them to want to go back home. I'm not saying they made this place their home, but that's their home. And what's interesting is that if you're Russian, it's possible that you could be Martian. And the Martians work with the Saturnians on a lot of situations. And you can see that happening now during this war, if it's still going on. I mean, we're told what's going on, but here's the kicker. People have issues with the news, but you still listen to the news. And my uncle, who was a very smart man with certain things, he definitely was a well-educated man. And he said this to me: there's always a hint of truth in the lies. You just have to piece it all together. And I'll never forget that. Could be a saying by somebody else, but anyway, my hypothesis here is that Noah was on the red planet of Mars, came here with different animals to this planet, or possibly another planet, after the flood. Because we can see, even in nature fights itself. And, I'm going to say something silly. Like, you could look at elephants, and they live in Africa. They get sunburned. What are you doing there? And then some would say, well, they used to be the ancestor of the woolly mammoth, and the woolly mammoth lost its fur, blah, blah, blah. Or we could go the route of Africa used to be a lush continent and is no longer that. Elephants don't fare well in the sun. Neither do hippos or rhinoceroses, I think. Do rhinoceros? I don't think rhinoceros sunburn, but they have terrible eyesight. Oh, and that was another thing. Jupiters, if you've ever listened to a Jupiter speak, they wheeze sometimes when they talk. This is not their planet. They have terrible eyesight as well. And some say it's the book they read. Some say it's because they talk too much. I don't know. It's possible that this is not my planet. My eyes don't do well here. I need corrective lenses. And you'll say, well, it's genetic. We have different blood types, everyone. So a lot of us share the same blood type. We have different DNA. I'm just saying to look at things outside of the norm. It's very well possible that, I have a heavier bone density. This might not be my planet. Some people have lighter bone density, different skeletal structures. Yes, I agree. Genetics plays a factor. But for the most part, if you're one particular race or one particular species, there's a basic model, like tigers. Might be a little bit different shades, or stripes might, have one extra stripe compared to the other, but they look like tigers. It's easy to see that. I don't know. I'll stop going down that rabbit trail. But anyway, my hypothesis is that it's possible that the original Russians, those that subscribe to the Red Star, are from Mars, and that the planet Mars was flooded, and Noah had to come here with the animals, and a lot of the species that you see here today are not even indigenous to this planet. They were brought here, potentially, and we've just gotten used to it, like we have with a lot of things, like the moon. I think it's possible that the moon is extraterrestrial. It's not from our planet. It's not supposed to be here. It causes a lot of problems in humans, or people on this planet that don't subscribe to it. You have sun worshipers and you have moon worshipers. Anyway, I hope y'all have a great day. And I found this one to be a little bit more challenging to get all the information together, but I think it is possible that a certain group of Russians, I'm not saying everyone born in Russia, but you know what I mean, the genetic line from Mars is probably predominantly in Russia and could potentially be scattered, throughout America, but that's predominantly where they settled. Anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful day.